character arc, how to make it into an acting piece. And that's how I came up with, well, you just asked logically, it was 22 years later, which was the time it had been since the original, where would Norman have been?
The film opens as Norman Bates is released from a mental facility and returns home. His doctor says he is cured. Others have their doubts. Norman's redemption is threatened by a vengeful figure from his past, Lila Loomis, the sister of the woman Norman killed in the shower. Once again, Lila is played by Vera Miles.
When he murders again, you will be directly responsible.
I think we identify with Norman in a different way in Psycho 2 than we did in Psycho 1. Psycho 2 is about, a misfit trying to find his way back to the world.
Can I help you?
I'm Norman Bates, the new cook's helper.
Norman gets a job at a diner and begins a relationship with a sympathetic coworker, Mary, played by Meg Tilly. They move in together.
Is this the room where you had your troubles?
One of them, yeah.
Well, I don't know what happened to you in the past, Norman, but you're never going to get over it, not unless you face it.
Then he starts getting messages from Mother. Is Norman back to his old ways, or is someone trying to frame him?
I'm becoming confused again.
You're rooting for Norman to keep it together. You're rooting for Norman to be sane, to be happy. And now you don't want any of the horror stuff to happen.
To stay true to Hitchcock's style while updating it for 1983, Richard Franklin hired cinematographer Dean Cundy, then known for Halloween and The Thing.
Originally, we wanted to do it in black and white so that it looked like the original. But Universal was pretty adamant. No black and white. Richard was very, very specific about how he wanted to, make sure that visually our version was a continuation, nothing unusual. And to me, that was a great sort of challenge, but fun thing to look at.
The filmmakers also modernized the sequel with graphic violence Hitchcock wouldn't have been allowed to show in 1960.
This is very post-Friday the 13th, post-Halloween, so you do get some nods to that. You get Dennis Franz, for example, getting his face slashed, which is kind of a full-color version of what happens to Martin Balsam in the original one, but, your seeing color makes a big difference, obviously.
Psycho 2 ends with a series of twists that would make Hitchcock proud.
Why did you lie to the sheriff and say Bates was with you this afternoon?
Mother!
The Meg Tilly character is the daughter of Vera Miles. They start to torture him and drive him mad. And then Mary, who's wormed her way into living in the house with Norman, starts to feel sorry for Norman.
I've been to all your meetings. I've done everything you've asked me for years, but I am not going to hurt Norman anymore.
And she realizes that Norman really is a good person at that moment and trying to hold on to his sanity.
Norman, do you recognize me? It's me, your mother.
And eventually it costs her her life because Norman has gone crazy.
You killed them all!
Suck is because the ending makes sense. Typically in good sequels, the rules of that movie then change what happened in the first movie. Here in Psycho 2, you find out that Norman's mother really wasn't his mother.
So, are you really my mother?
And that his real mother is still around.
The woman you thought was your mother was my sister.
And she's the one that's been killing everybody, punishing them for what they did to Norman, putting him away. And he whacks her over the head with a shovel. Then he's back to being Norman Bates again. He carries her up the stairs, and you hear that creepy voice again.
I'm not sleepy. Put me in my chair.
Yes, Mother.
So the arc of the movie is really Norman losing his mind a second time. And the irony is he ends up at the end of the movie as crazy as a loon. And nobody knows it. It's a tragedy in a way.
Don't let them take me back to the institution.
Anthony Perkins is even better. As great as he is in Psycho, I think he's even better in Psycho 2. I think it's one of the great lead performances in any horror film ever made.
You can't make me.
You don't know the effect that a film's going to have. I went to a dinner, 7 or 8 years ago with all the big horror directors, and they voted Psycho 2 the best horror sequel ever.